attract people to come and settle, right? That was the idea. So the idea was, oh, this is a white place, right? So we don't want to talk about those who are not white. And so here's a quote, and you can find this, again, a lot of this is available online, right? You can find it in articles that have already been posted on the internet by other people who have done work before me. So here, this is an article by Elroy M. Avery, Port Richey. Elroy M. Avery wrote, as to morals, disposition, and color, the people are white. There's not a Negro resident in Newport Richey.
What?
Really? What year is this? 1921.
Wow.
Who's doing the work? Okay, all right. So they were there, of course. And then we look here, and San Antonio is right here, right near St. Leo. It's adjacent town to St. Leo. And here's a quote from the Waterloo Daily Courier. San Antonio is a small town. St. Leo College is 1/2 mile east of here. Negroes are not allowed here to settle. The few of which are here work in the turpentine stills, and if the still is moved, the Negroes got to go with it. Okay. So there was a concerted effort not to talk about the community that was here, but well, here they are. Okay. So if you got railroad crews and you got turpentine pulling is a horrible, horrible thing to do. And anytime you think of something that's horrible thing labor to do, you know who's doing it. The people who have no other choice, right? So of course there were African Americans, turpentine pullers, farm workers, citrus pickers. I've got a really good picture of some citrus workers later on. Lumber mills, road crew laborers, railroad workers, janitors, maids, laundresses, anything you can think of, midwives. They were here, all right? And they were also having their own establishments as well. All right. So if you look at the houses, what we do is we look at this cabin. This is from 1895. I was trying to find the year, so I forgot it. This is a cabin photo from 1895, and this is in Pasco. Now, when I'm going through, I'll show you how we go through the census records. But you know, the lie of no African Americans being here, it's blatant. Newport Richey, though, I'm finding it's a little different. It's a little different. It was a little worse here, actually. So that is something that we'll look at in a minute. But 1895, we can find photos that have dates. We can find, going to the next question. That's not what they want to talk about. You don't force people to talk about things. So census data is often the most helpful for finding information. It's our jumping off point. So we can get some basic information, but then we have to cross-list it, right? And the white people are listed as W's. But sometimes the black people are listed as N's for Negro. It just depends. And in 1910, you can see how few categories there are. Well, maybe that doesn't look like a few categories, but you'll see the progression here. There's fewer categories across the top, which are talking, you know, the categories are further information like where were you born, where were your parents born, that type of thing. And so here in this part of Florida, you find a lot of people weren't born here during this time period. People were coming in to get land, to farm, whatever. And the black people were often coming from the other parts of the Deep South. And coming in, Florida is not a traditional slave state. So you don't have a lot, especially further south in Florida, you don't have a lot of families that were here for 200 years enslaved here. So a lot of the black families came from other parts of the Deep South. And so you'll find that here listed in these columns down here about where they came from. I'm going to start with Laura Birch. All right, she's my thread. I'm going to pull on her a little bit, see what I can find. You may heard Watts.
Oh yeah.
Okay, they took us to Watts, and we were documenting that community. And what we were doing was doing kind of what I do, getting oral histories and coming to a major library in the area and asking all the people to come and bring their photos to us so that we could scan the photos and see which ones we were going to use. So I do the same thing with my students. I a horse. Okay, that's a big deal.
That's a car and a gun.
That's expensive. So you own a horse, you have a gun, and you have your game. All right, and he has all the paraphernalia associated with a typical Florida hunter of the time period. This kind of picture is golden for us.
It's like it's just
not
Yeah,
good.
well, when people decided to start moving out and moving north and moving west, that, depletes the population, and often it's a brain drain, which is the sad part, because people who can afford to live in those communities. Sometimes what's really interesting is you rebuild, people leave, right, and then they rebuild a new neighborhood, right, somewhere else, and you kind of move to this different part of town, and everybody kind of moves over
Our
somewhere
black
else.
section,
A lot.
they didn't move into white neighborhoods, they moved into like the woods. And then that started a community of other blacks moving over there, so.
Yeah, and there's a neighborhood, in San Antonio, Florida, which there's now this huge development called Marana. Have you heard of Marana?
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest developments in Florida, just off 52.
Yep.
And it's huge, it has the biggest lagoon in Florida, it's a pool, but it's like being at the beach. And that abuts the black neighborhood that we're talking, not the bottom, but another black neighborhood where they moved into the woods. And the houses are still there, and people are still living there. And that Marana is just expanding so fast that we know that that's gonna be the next property that goes, that they're gonna buy to expand the woods and stuff. But they moved into the woods to have a place on their own.
Yeah.